to it, we're going to talk today about Google Maps and specifically the kind of the Google Maps playbook for paving companies. And this is an area where we really focus on for our customers. It's one of the best sources of leads for paving companies. And it's also something that keeps evolving in time as Google makes changes and makes things more difficult. And so it's something that we constantly keep an eye on because it seems like new challenges arrive every couple months, if not sooner. And so this is an area we're very active in. And so I want to just provide some guidance today as we go through this. And this is really just a part of what we call our accelerated growth model. And what all this means is as you're looking at growing your business, specifically through online leads, but it doesn't necessarily just have to be that. There's kind of a cyclical process you do here, which is first you want to drive leads. There's a number of ways you can do that. Then you want to maximize your conversion of those leads. So get more people to raise their hand or give you a call or opt in, things like that. And then look at the results. What's your return on investment? What areas were most effective for you? And where should you invest more? And then it starts back over. Now you got more leads coming in because you've invested more, and on and on and on. And it's a process where you keep just trying to get better. And so, and this is more detail, but today we're going to focus on organic. And in this model, I would consider Maps part of organic. You're not paying for it. It's not an email database that you have that you're reaching out to. It's not a repeat customer. It's not a referral customer. It's someone who's going out there looking for what you do, who's finding you. Okay. And it's, part of this, what we call the digital dominance method, which there really is a lot of different sources for this. And so we're going to hone in on the SEO organic maps, but there's a lot of different places that these come from. And as we go through the year here, we're going to do one of these every month. We're going to talk about different areas here that are important and try to give you some useful information and help out with how to approach these things and how we approach these things for our customers. So what we'll cover today is the latest updates that we're seeing with the Google Maps listings, some of the biggest issues that could be preventing you from ranking. I'll go through our proven model for ranking in the 3-pack. So this is what we do. And then we'll talk about some tools that are out there that you can use to kind of systematize this and automate some of the heavy lifting that has to be done in order to do well at this. Okay. So before we get into that, who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, I wrote the book, The Online Marketing for Paving Companies. You can opt in on our website and give you a free digital copy, or you can buy it on Amazon. Some people have. We're a member of NAPA. And I've founded Paving Marketers. We're the number one, in my view. I haven't seen anyone else. Marketing company for paving companies, just for paving companies. We develop a lot of expertise in the paving industry with respect to digital marketing for paving companies, and that's asphalt, that's concrete, that's seal coating, crack filling, all the related services that you do. We learn how to market those effectively for our customers. And just going back further, I've been running digital agencies since 2011. I've got my original company. It's still operating. We've got 2 locations, over 600 5-star reviews. Been doing this a long time. We've had customers all over the world. I think last check, 33% of the countries in the world we've done a project in across 6 continents. So, we've seen a lot, we've done a lot, and nothing really surprises us anymore, other than everything changes constantly, and you got to be watching for it. And so even the changes now are starting to get kind of predictable. You kind of know what Google's going to do. They kind of have a playbook that corresponds with increasing their revenues from ads and making it harder for smaller businesses to do well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through things here. So the question is, do Google Maps matter? And the reality is, as you probably already know, they absolutely do. And if you look at a search result, And it varies. In paving, you don't generally see these local service ads up here yet. They'll come eventually. Or if you do some concrete or some landscaping, some paving companies do some of that, get more into the hardscape stuff. You will see local service ads there. But for most paving companies, you don't. But you will see Google ads on top, and then you'll see the maps. And kind of aggregated across industries, what you see is that almost half of the clicks and calls do come from the Google Maps. Now, the data with paving is slightly different, and I'll talk about that in a second, but it's a good idea in your mind just to understand that a huge majority of your business online will come from the maps. So it's extremely important to get this right. And so the answer is yes, of course, Google Maps matter. They will continue to matter. And unless Google gets broken up, which would be awesome, they might actually have to hire some customer service reps at that point. They're going to matter. And even then, there'll just be 50 more maps that you have to deal with. So, this isn't changing, like the yellow pages isn't going away. It just kind of turned into something else. It will always be like this for the foreseeable future for getting new customers. And as the business owners and the people, the residential owners who hire you get younger, this will be increasingly important. So it's not something you can ignore. You can't live necessarily on your existing book of business where people call you and that you've done business with, because eventually they'll sell the company to their kids, and their kids, they might reevaluate things and look online. You never know. So it's just one of those things where you got to be in there, you got to do it, and you got to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. And so here's our data. This would have been over the last year. I think we took this in November, and what this doesn't show you is that this is data from 15,000 leads. So over December 2022 to November 2023, we helped drive 15,000 leads for paving companies. So it's a pretty excellent data set, I would say. And what we saw when we kind of break it down into source, so we track this, we have ways of tracking this for you so you can see it. 34% of the leads for our paving company clients came from the maps. It was the biggest source. Number two here, which we're not going to talk about today, really, was Google ads at 28%. And then organic SEO, which is kind of the stuff, you've got the ads and you got the maps and you've got organic, that was 18%. And an interesting thing I would point out here is even though that comes from organic, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was organic. And what I mean by that is there are some people, and I'm one of them, who will see an ad and won't click on it, but they'll see who the company is and they'll Google that company and go to the company. So one of the things we tell our customers is you always, always, always want to be running ads, because even if they don't click on it, you're still going to get these people who will come in who saw your ad. You'll never know they saw your ad. They never click on it, but they call you anyway. If we could attribute it properly, we would say that was a Google Ads lead, but we can't. And so it kind of gets snuck into the organic bucket, because that's, you can tell when it's a Google ad or it's a Google map. So even that organic SEO is a little inflated, because the same thing will happen in maps. If you're doing well in maps, some people will skip that and will look for your organic listing, because that's just what people are used to. So I would always take the organic number with a grain of salt, because what really, really drives projects is the ads and the maps. Far and away, the vast majority of business comes from those two places. And so we know then from the data that Google Maps drives calls, and that you can't rely on pay-per-click alone. That being said, you really should be doing pay-per-click. You should be doing both. So let's talk a little bit about the biggest changes that we've seen probably over the last quarter. And the first one I would say is proximity tightening. And so what I mean by that is, if you think about Google Maps and you think about your own experience using it, say you're looking for a restaurant, say you want to go get French cuisine, or who knows, whatever you want to eat. But you search your phone and boom, you get maps. That's what you're looking for, because you want to see, well, hey, how far do I have to drive? Where are they? But people who are searching for service providers have that same mentality, where they want to know that they want to work with someone close to them. It's interesting why people want to do that, but they do. And so Google recognizes that, they see it in their data, and so they keep kind of, ratcheting down your availability to be shown in maps. They want the options shown to their customers, who are the searchers, to be as close to them as is possible. And so what they keep doing is reducing your ability to spread out farther in the maps, which is a problem because maps drives leads. So as they tighten the proximity, your reach gets smaller and you get less leads. You may get more leads in the bubble, but if you're kind of on the outsides of town and they're ratcheting you in out of the city, you're missing out on some of that, potential commercial business. Maybe you don't care about the driveways in the city, but regardless, as your proximity shrinks, it's less effective for you. Now, there are things you can do, and there's things that we do, which we'll talk about a little bit here to try to stretch that out. But the recommendation that I am making, and what I am seeing here, and kind of the mind shift that has to start happening, is there is really, because of the power of proximity, and I don't see a way that changes. You have to start considering, if getting leads from maps is important to you, and it should be, you have to start thinking about physical locations, because that's the best way to expand your maps. It just is. I think somewhere says McDonald's tries to place a McDonald's like every 8 minutes. You shouldn't be able to, something crazy like that. I have a buddy who does like graphical installations for them all over the country. So he goes all over the place and puts up all they hire his business, put those signs up. Maybe he told me that. I don't remember where I heard it, but it's true. If you start looking, you really can't generally drive more than 8 minutes without hitting a McDonald's. Well, why do they do that? Because people want to go close to them. And so you're seeing the same thing in all businesses with the maps, is the proximity thing. And so when you are having an office and a plant, that's where you can get expanded reach. Here's the other piece of this. Google have made it much more difficult to get verified. What we're seeing is video verifications are really almost being required every time now, which is horrible. And I get why they're doing it, but that's hard. And so as you think about your business and your plan for expanding, whatever that is, I want you to think about the areas that you're targeting for business and start thinking about how you could get a physical location there. And I'll give you some examples. You want to make sure it's profitable. A lot of times you're seasonal, depending where you are in the country. So you don't necessarily want to be leased for a whole year. But if it's, if it brings you profitable business, you may want to consider that. But you can get creative. Now, here's some things you can't do. You can't get a UPS box. You can't get a Regis. You can't get those, like, what are those other ones? Like WeWork, whatever that stupid one is. I don't even know. The co-working spaces. That stuff doesn't work. Google's wised up to that. They won't, if it even gets through initial review, which typically it won't, once you try to video verify that, they're going to shoot that down. So you have to start thinking, where can I find inexpensive real estate to have an office? It doesn't have to be 5,000 square feet. It could be a closet. It doesn't matter. What matters is you can put signage up in it. You can take a video of it showing its location, that it's accessible. That's what we're seeing, and that's what we're recommending. So other ways you can approach this. If you're friends with other local service businesses who maybe do have bigger requirements, maybe they're more truck and technician based, they're not having all these big machines and everything like you paving guys are. Make friends with plumbers. Maybe got a buddy who's a plumber. He's got a big plumbing shop. Maybe he'll let you set up a suite in his office. We've seen that stuff still working. Make an arrangement to pay them rent for a closet. If you're good buddies, they probably won't care. You're not going to compete with them if you're a paving company and they're plumbing. You're just in completely different worlds. There's no problems with doing that. So just some ideas about how to get around this proximity. What I will say too is you got to be about 15, 20 miles apart. So, don't keep that in mind, because as you overlap, there's interference that starts messing with your results. So there's a fine line between too far away and too close. So as you think about your service area and where you look for customers and where you want the best jobs, think about where to set your Google Business Profile locations to generate more business. Okay. The next thing is paid ads in map results. And we have started to see this, and we knew this was coming. This is Google's MO. They drive, usage of their products, and then they start sneaking the ads in. And so we're seeing one and sometimes two map spots being displaced by ads. Not everywhere. We don't know how it's gonna land, but I would start expecting to see at least one sponsored ad spot in the maps. And when you go to more, if you kind of click the more places thing, we've seen 2 or 3. We've seen it start to look like the traditional results with 3 ads up top. So this is another argument why you need to be running ads. But when you run ads, they also need to be connected to your Google Business Profile. That's what drives showing up in the maps. In other words, you can't run ads just targeting maps. But if your Google Ads account is connected to your business profile, one of the places you'll be eligible to be shown is in the maps results. Okay. So keep an eye on that. Again, I'll just go back to everybody should be running ads. If you do it right, you get competitive cost per leads. That should be profitable business for you. Certainly over time, sometimes, when you make changes and things, it can take time to ramp up again. But over time, on balance, it should be profitable business for you. Okay. The third thing I want to talk about here in biggest changes is Google review sweeping. And we have seen this across multiple industries. Google went through and swept out a bunch of reviews, which really stinks because, this is something that typically I've seen our paving customers struggle with a bit, is getting enough reviews. And when you don't have that many to begin with, and you get some swept away by a Google action, now you're kind of leaving yourself at risk. You get 1-star reviews and they really, really hurt you. And it's not even so much that people read them, although sometimes they do. They can be prominently placed, and we've seen in data in multiple cases where there'll be a 1-star review that's sticky, and people see it, and you can see the drop in interactions. And you have to rule out other things first, but ultimately comes back to, if there's nothing else, is people are seeing that and they're not moving forward, which is awful. Their 1-star reviews are almost always unfair, one-sided, and Google will never remove them. They're awful. So all you can do is try to bury them. And so you do need a consistent process to get more reviews, and that will prevent you being impacted negatively by Google review sweeping. Are they going to sweep out some legitimate ones? Yes. We haven't seen them doing this year yet. Granted, it's relatively new. It seemed to happen in October, November. But I wouldn't be surprised to see another one soon. There was another report out that Google was targeting old, unused Google accounts and Gmail accounts for deletion. And so they're really trying to go back and clean up their own house, because a lot of fake reviews come from just ancient Google accounts that no one's using. So they're going to keep coming after this, and your only response is to have a good process to get more reviews on a regular basis. Okay. So let's talk about what could be hurting your rankings on maps. And so a lot of these things are what people used to do. It's never been a huge problem that I've seen in the paving industry. There are other industries that have struggled a lot with this. But it's good to know and good to be aware of, so I'm going to cover it anyway. And so the first one is, we already talked about, it really is helpful to have an actual office location with, you show the address so people can see it. And more importantly, Google can see it, because you will get a proximity bonus in the maps. You just will. Now, you can have your address hidden, and Google will still know that that's your address, and you'll still show up okay in maps. It's doable. You can still get good results. So it's not that you are forced to have an address. It's that what we have seen consistently, and not just us, but others who I talk to, have seen that having that actual address does give you a boost in the maps, and it sets the stage for you to have a network of them to cover your service area. So if you don't have one, you can make it work. You'll still get calls, you'll still get business. I don't want to leave an impression that's not the case. But as you think about moving forward, you may want to think about how you could set up an office and offices in strategic locations, knowing that 5 to 10 miles around it, you're going to have a big boost and a big advantage for getting business. And I think this will become more important over time. We're just seeing the beginnings of it here, but unless Google changes something with the proximity, I expect to see competition increase for this quite a bit. Okay. So number two is, did you try to spam Google with fake locations? And so we've seen this too, even inadvertently. So I this is written as spam. It has been intentional. Again, not so much in the paving industry, but I've seen it in others where bad players will try to create a bunch of fake locations to get results. And that's why Google cracks down on this stuff. Now, this can happen inadvertently too, where you accidentally have multiple locations. You get kind of penalized for that if you don't clean it up, if you don't shut them down, if you don't stay on top of it. And that can take months and months and months to clean up. So it's not always deliberate. It's not always a bad actor. It's sometimes just you work with different companies over time. You keep opening up new ones, and it wasn't monitored correctly enough by the people you were working with, or just you wouldn't know as a business owner. You can't keep track of all this stuff. So be aware of that. Keep it to a single Google business profile per location, and don't try to make fake ones, is the bottom line here. The third thing is an inconsistent name, address, phone number profile. And so this is very important for local, is having your business name that's on your website, the name, address, phone number on your website, with some exceptions like call tracking, which we can get into if people want to know. But ask a question, otherwise I won't get into it. Inconsistent name, address, phone number between your Google business profile and your website, and between directories online. So, things like Yelp, there's 8,000 directories. They're not as important as they used to be, but they still matter. And we'll talk more about that. But the main takeaway here is, if you're not being consistent, if you've changed addresses and didn't update all of those things, you're sending a muddied message, which can hurt your maps rankings. That's all I'll say about that for now. Did you spam your city and company name or category? So, for example, if your name is Bob's Paving Company, and instead of using that as your name in Google Business, you said your business name was Best Paving Company in Chicago. Bad idea. Those things get flagged and shut down, and you kind of get Google looking at you with the evil eye. So don't do that. And if you did do that, fix it, because it will. If it's not hurting you now, it will. And then lastly, we already kind of talked about this. Do you have enough reviews across the web? Now, Google does look at other places like Angie and like Facebook to the extent that they can see it and things like that. But Google really only cares about Google reviews. So as you're collecting reviews, you really want to try to steer people to leave them for you on Google, because those have 10-to-1 impact for any reviews you get anywhere else. The other reviews are really valuable as testimonials potentially, but in terms of impact on maps, it's Google reviews all the way. Okay. So let's move along to our proven formula for getting ranked in the 3-pack or the maps pack. That just means showing up visibly on the maps. That's what we're talking about here. And it all centers around your Google business profile. So we've talked about that a little bit, talked about having an address if you can. But there's more to it than that. Making sure your name, address, and phone match, and then filling it out completely. Even things like operating hours make a huge difference. So if you're not answering your phones 24/7, if you don't have an answering service, don't put that you're open 24/7. It's not a huge impact, but I would put your business hours where you're answering phones, because what we've seen in some testing and others that we talk to is you actually get a little maps boost when you're open according to your operating hours. So if you put 24/7, okay, you don't get it. But if you restrict your availability when you're actually answering phones, you do tend to get a little pop. Now, is it huge? No, but it really points to Google takes the information that you put in their business profile very seriously. And so fill it out completely, fill it out accurately, and update it, add stuff to it. It helps. So that's kind of the core of what you do. Then there are the things that point back to your Google business profile. And the first we'll talk about are citations. And so what are citations? Citations are basically links from these directories like Yelp, like, I don't even know. There's so many of them, but any place where you're like on a list of businesses with your name, address, and phone number, that's a citation. And those used to be extremely important. They still are important up until a point. And so I'll basically say this. You want to have about as many as your competitors have. And that's really all you need. You don't need 8,000 of them. If you use an auditing tool like Bright Local or Whitespark and you see that your average competitor has 20 showing in their tool, add them until you have 20. You don't need to go crazy with this. It's not going to, having 50 when they have 20 isn't really going to do much for you. It's just not. But having 5 or 3 when they have 20 might hold you back. Okay. So that's citations. Reviews you already talked about. The one thing I will add to what I said previously here about reviews is, to the extent that they can be made rich with content, they will be much more powerful. So think of it this way. If a customer leaves pictures, if they leave keywords, if they say, gosh, Bob's Paving did such an awesome job redoing my driveway. Check this picture out. It looks great. I'm so happy. Wonderful job. And they left that on their phone on their property. That's gold. That's going to pop your maps right there for driveway paving. Okay. And it's going to be a featured review because they added rich media to it. Now, this can work against you also. If someone's mad, and it doesn't have to be your customer, it could be a neighbor, it could be someone who didn't like where your truck was parked. We've seen all kinds of crazy things like this. And they can leave you a bad review and take a picture of what they don't like. And Google takes that seriously. It's ridiculous, but they do. And, like I said, all you can do about it is get more reviews. Quick question came in. Is a citation the same as a backlink? Yes, it is a type of backlink. So there's lots of different types, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in the next couple of slides that are coming up. But you can think of a citation as a special kind of backlink that has name, address, and phone information, which helps amplify your maps presence because you're setting up this consistent name, address, phone profile across the web, which says, hey, we're a real business and we're here. This is our name and you can call us. So it is a type of backlink, but there are multiple kinds. We'll talk more about that. Okay. Then the third thing we talk about here is local content. And so what you have to understand about Google and about how they view this and how you rank in the maps, a really important piece of this is local content. And so we internally at our company, we call this hyperlocal content. And so that will be things like if there are landmarks in your area, important points, key areas, we want to write about them and put that on your site. Not necessarily for your customers to see it, but just so when Google crawls your site and understands your site, they'll say, hey, Bob's Paving is relevant to, Lucas Oil Stadium or whatever it is. It's these little clues that you leave on your site because Google's just a dumb machine reading code, spitting out algorithmic results. So it's not smart, whatever they pretend. And if you feed it in things that tell you that, if you feed it things that tell it what you want, to some extent, it will understand things the way you want them to. And so that's why you do things like local content. And I would differentiate that from non-local content, which is also important for different reasons. But as far as specifically in the map pack, it's local content that makes a big difference. Other content like blog posts, they're important. It really sets you up as an authority. We have some customers, that happens actually quite a lot, the longer people are with us, because of the blog content that we do for them, they will start getting calls from, 18 states away. It's nuts. Like you think they would actually look who they're calling. But so our customers will get leads from, and they're like, why did they call us? It's like, well, because your content's working too well. Google likes your content everywhere, not just around in your service area. So, sometimes that happens. It's kind of funny when it does, but it's also annoying for you. But one of those things where you got, it does, by increasing your authority, it does help you in the maps locally too. So you got to do it, but then you get a call states away, kind of annoying. Now, if you happen to get a call states away from a commercial property owner who owns stuff in your area, hey, that's awesome. But if it's a guy who thinks you're going to drive, 15 states to his driveway, yeah, I get it. That's not what you want, but it's just kind of how working online works. All right. So basically, you do these 4 things, get a well-optimized profile, feed it citations up to a point, consistently get reviews, write local content, you will improve in maps. Works every single time. How it turns into leads is another story, but it will get you the visibility. Getting reviews and other things, we'll talk more of visibility, but the first step is being there. The second step is converting that traffic, like we talked about. Get the leads, convert them. It's this cycle that goes on and on. All right, so let's talk about what are some things that send trust signals to Google for your business profile. And so this matters when we talk about things that could be holding you back. These are things that inhibit trust, spam stuff, right? That Google flags you as maybe not a trustworthy actor. So having brand authority is a trust signal. So use your real business name. Don't try to do Best Paving Company, right? Maybe you are. I'm sure you are, but you can't use it as your name unless it's actually your business name. The verification method. Since we've written this slide, they've really cracked down on this a lot, almost to the point where, like I said, all we're seeing is video verifications. So they're really deciding that there's a trust issue in maps, and they're making everybody do verifications by video. We've seen some exceptions, but that's a tough one. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about that. Total number of reviews. So this is clear from a client perspective. One of the first things we look at as when we're diagnosing maps is how are you doing with reviews with respect to the other people who are showing up in maps. You want to be of the same order of magnitude, plus or minus 20%, if you can. So if you've got 50 reviews, your competitor has 100, you've got some work to do. It doesn't mean it's disqualifying, but if you just think about how you search for things, and if you have two similar companies you don't really know anything about, and you're only going to call one of them, which one are you going to call? You're going to call one with more reviews because it just seems more trustworthy to you. Even if they could, you won't even often click in to see if they're legitimate reviews or not. So it's really important to drive reviews consistently and ideally take the dominant position in your market for reviews, because this is the kind of thing that translates position and visibility into calls. In the same way, like a negative review can inhibit the calls from happening, having the most reviews can increase your calls without increasing your ranking. So this is why these are so important. Another thing that is a trust signal is review velocity. And all that means is the average number of reviews you're adding every month. So if you're on average adding 3 to 5 reviews a month, which is great, if you can get as a paving company, good start, and suddenly you add 50, it was like, whoa, what happened here? This looks fishy. I might look at this, might get flagged. Just want to be careful about that. It's okay if you do it, if you consistently do it in batches that kind of come in 10 a time every couple months. That's okay. You're still kind of having a consistent average review velocity there. Recently unsuspended. So if you make significant changes, you could get suspended. But what will also happen, which is terrible, and it happens to our customers occasionally, is you've been around for years and suddenly they decide to verify you and they suspend you. They're nutcases at Google. There's no one you can call. You got to do it by email. Even they shut down their chat. You can't get a consistent rep. It's horrible. It's really awful what they do to people. I really can't stand Google, but they've got, they're the keys to the lead. So we got to deal with them. But they're such an awful company and they really mistreat small businesses and our customers, and I hate it. But sometimes they'll just require you to verify and they'll take you down, and you got to submit all this documentation to them exactly how they want it. Has to be clear and legible. I mean, they're like government bureaucracies about this stuff. It's like the DMV is controlling your access to leads, and you better have the form they want and the way they want it, or you're going to get it's awful. That being said, when you go through that process and you're now re-verified, you tend to get an uptick in trust. Why? Because they've recently reviewed you and determined that you're a legitimate company. Thanks a lot, Google. Really appreciate that. No, really don't, but you know what I mean. Couple other things that are business profile trust signals, back-end engagement. So what that means is updating images, updating info, holiday hours, less important for B2B, I think. If you're closed on Christmas, your customers probably are too. But like if you're Best Buy, for example, it's probably important for people to know if you're actually open on New Year's Eve. Some people are closed, some aren't. Regardless of that, it's a good idea to Google send me emails. Am I open on holidays? I'm like, no, but yeah. But I don't have people visiting my storefront. It's a good idea to update those things. I'm not trying to get customers locally, so I don't really care about my maps too much. But for you, where your customers are local, they're looking for you, good idea to put holiday hours. And always reply to reviews, positive ones. They might get boring, you might sound repetitive, but Google actually looks at if you reply to reviews, and it's a ranking factor for maps. So always do it. Last thing I already talked about, completed profile, fill everything out, have a logo, images, keep uploading photos, project photos, all those things. All of that will help you. Okay. Now let's talk about local link strategies. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee here. We talked about citations, and those are very important. This is another different type of link, which is especially important for local businesses. And these can be hard to get, but I want to just get you thinking about how you might do it. Okay. It really just boils down to have your business actively involved in your community. Sponsor a little league team, right? Have a community event, maybe a toy drive, create a local resource page. Hey, who are the companies that we like to work with in the area? Sponsor a scholarship, get a Chamber of Commerce link. So these are all sources of links from your local area, which will point to your website. Okay, these are very strong links because what it's telling Google, again, it's more signals to Google that you are relevant in this area. And so the more active you are in your community with your business, the more links you can get from local businesses who are your friends or that you do events with or so on and so forth. It can help you over time have better results in maps. And so I hope that gets you thinking. But it's really just getting involved in a public way on the internet in your community, and the links will follow. That's the strategy. All right, let's talk about claiming and optimizing your Google Biz profile listing. You all should have done this already. If you haven't, do it. Just a couple things here. Like I said, make sure you have access to it. Make sure you control it. What we hear horror stories all the time of people that we talk to that aren't our customers yet or become our customers whose former agency will not give them their Google business profile or their Google Ads account. It's crazy to me that they can get away with this, but they do lots of them, especially the bigger ones. They do this to keep you from canceling, and they'll claim it's their intellectual property. They'll claim your Google business profile or your Google Ads account is their intellectual property and you can't keep it. I just think that's wicked. I think it's awful. I think it's wrong. They'll do that with your website too. So be careful who you work with. Make sure whatever marketing company you work with, read the terms. Make sure that you own all your assets, because you'd be shocked the number of them out there who will use your own, what should be your own properties, as blackmail against you to stay with them. It's awful. So make sure you own your number one, make sure you own your Google business profile. Okay. Make sure your company name is accurate. As we talked about, add your website address. Don't ever leave that out. It is so critical for those to be linked. Use a local number. Don't use a 1-800 number. You're not, you're not a national company. Even if you are, you want local numbers for your Google business profiles. Okay. People are going to think it's weird if you don't have a local number in your Google business profile. Use a local address. PO boxes, don't use them. Google won't even let you do it. A UPS store, stay away from that stuff. It's got to be a local address if you can. Now, if you can't, you're a service area business. That's okay. But as things get more competitive, you're going to want to think about, how can I have business hubs? They could be engineering offices. It could be a sales office, right? It could be where your estimator sits. I understand there's a cost to this. And so it's one of those things where you kind of have to do a cost benefit analysis. Can I see an ROI from having a second location where I can get more action in my area from maps? And generally, if you spend the time building it up and investing in it, you should see positive ROI there. But you got to do all these things we're talking about. You got to do. You got to get it. You got to get it live. You got to get it verified. You got to get reviews to it. You got to get citations. Got to be on your website. All these things. But if you do all these things, it will drive calls for you, and those calls will turn into business, and they'll pay for itself. But you got to invest the money. You got to do the work to get there. Okay. As I mentioned, upload photos and things like that. You're gonna want to do that, and that's really it. Just Google loves its own properties more than anything else. They love their reviews. They love their Google business. So feed it. It makes Google happy. Now, another change, if you ever manage these yourself, was there used to be an app. You'd have an app on your phone or like a different login on your website on your computer. You could log in and manage it. They've changed that, which is annoying for people like us who manage dozens and dozens and dozens of these things. You actually manage it in Google now, which is great for you if you only got one or a couple locations. And so make sure that you do that, because you see a lot of useful stuff there. You can edit your profile right there, respond to reviews, see how your performance is doing, all those things. So that's where you do it now, if you didn't know that. Get Google verified. It just basically means you control it and it's yours. Paving, there are some industries who have very stringent verification requirements, most notably garage door companies and locksmiths. You guys don't have it that bad. They're not coming after you in your GBPs yet, but I wouldn't be surprised again to see Google expand that as maps get more and more competitive. So it's very important to have this stuff and control it and keep it up to date, and kind of insulates you from future problems with Google for the most part, unless they decide to randomly verify you after years. It's always something. Like I said, add photos. This matters to Google, but it does matter to customers. Some customers are very fastidious. They'll look through every single thing you do. I know I have a lot of our customers that come in and have watched all the videos I've done. I can't believe anybody sits there and listens to me talk. But I'm continually surprised by how many people have come on as customers who've watched all the stuff. Now I get it. I totally do, because I sometimes do the same thing. I really want to know, who am I doing business with? Do they know what they're talking about? Do they do good work? Can I trust them? And one of the ways you do this is, you can put content out there. But you show your work. And so for a paving company, if someone's thinking about, paving their driveway, let's just go do the easy one, or paving their parking lot, right? It's a business owner, they got to pave their parking lot. Well, if they can go to your Google business profile and see 10 different parking lots that you've paved, and they're like, okay, that looks great. I know this looks like I can trust this company to do their work. That's going to say more than anything, you can say. So it's not just for Google, and there's lots of benefits for uploading it that way, but it's for your customers too. And you should put those on your website too. We encourage our customers to submit project, case studies to us, so we can put them on their website, so that their own customers and potential customers can go and pick through that and see, hey, I'm thinking about doing a driveway. Look, there's all these case studies of driveways. Hey, these look great. Looks like these guys do a good job. I'll get an estimate from them. That's the point of this stuff. Plus, it's actually great local content the way we build them. It's great local content for Google, because you can put maps in there, you can put testimonials. And so it's another bit of that local content that we talked about that will help you do better in maps. Okay. You can check your performance. So this is one of the things that we look at when it looks like we have customers' leads going down. Is okay, well, how are the ads doing? Okay, we can talk about that. There's ads can be funny, especially if you turn them off and turn them back on, or they just shut down for some reason. It happens, but it can take some time for it to dial back up in. It can be affected by holidays. November, December is really tough on ads. Tends to get better in January. Sometimes it just takes time for things to dial in. So look at that. And we look at your maps. How's your performance? Are your impressions down? No. If your impressions aren't down, you're still showing up everywhere. That's good. Are your interactions down? If your interactions are down, but your impressions aren't down, it means for some reason people are clicking or calling you less than they were before something changed. What is that? Usually it's a new competitor moved in. So somebody just was getting great, whatever they did, somebody surged in the maps. And so now they're taking that interaction share from you. You've got to respond to that. Or sometimes we look and no, the maps have been stable. It's the same people who have been there for 6 months. Well, what the heck is going on here? And sometimes it's a review. I mean, it's different every time, but you can usually, by going through performance data, you can start to unpack where an issue might be, and then come up with a plan to address it. And the good news is it's always fixable. There's always something you can do. It may be more expensive in the short term. You may have to go heavier on ads. You may have to do a review campaign. There's always, once you understand what the issue is, you can strategically adjust to counteract that. Okay. So it's important to keep an eye on this stuff because it will tell you what you need to do to get better results. So some best practices, I think we covered most of this, update photos, add them on a consistent basis. We recommend and we try to encourage and try to help posting updates 3 times a week. Think of it almost like a social media account. It's not, but it's like social media for maps. Google loves this stuff. So posting project pictures to Google, you probably run at least 3 jobs a week. If you tend to show up on site, take some pictures, just pop them into Google, or if you're a customer, send them to us, we'll do it for you. But make a practice of just consistently engaging with your Google business profile, and it's going to help you in maps 100% of the time. I guarantee it. Like I said, respond to reviews, answer questions that get posted. I think those are pretty rare. I think most of the times you see questions on Google business profile that it's actually like marketing agencies doing that. I don't see many people, really asking questions. But if you happen to get one, answer it. You'll get notified if you control the email account for your Google business profile. Say, hey, you have a new question. Just answer it. All right. And next thing we'll talk about, building citations. And so we've talked about this. We've covered citations. I'll give you a shortcut here. The easiest thing you can do, which should be enough in most cases, is there are these things called aggregators. And these aggregators are basically you do a submission to them and they will update a bunch of directory sites for you. And if you're a customer, we do it for you. If you're not, these are the kind of the 4 big ones: Factual, Axicom, Infogroup, Newstar. And the way you can do that is use these citation tools. So we use BrightLocal, we use Whitespark sometimes. We have used Yext, but we've gone away from them because I don't like their business model. Yext's business model, they're pretty prominent, but they want to lock you into a subscription in case your stuff gets changed. Well, but it doesn't get changed. It's not like there are people out there updating competitor, but it's not really a real problem. So you end up having to pay $30 a month to Yext ad nauseum when really nothing new is happening. And if you cancel it, they pull back all their updates. So I just don't like that. We thought it was helpful, but we've gone away from that because it's just annoying. Why do we have to pay this all the time? There's no point. So we now recommend and we use BrightLocal. BrightLocal allows you to submit to aggregators. So you can basically, it's like $100 or something one time. Boom, you hit all the aggregators. Done. If you change your address, submit it to aggregators again. So you can kind of control it and do it on as needed, pay-as-you-go basis versus just constantly having a subscription fee associated with it. Advice Local is another one I'm not familiar with. My team put that on there. Actually, never heard of them. I'm sure they're fine, but I don't know about them, so I don't have anything to say. Moz Local it's fine too. It's kind of a more done for you service, so no problems there. Just don't use it. On Whitespark is similar to BrightLocal, and that you kind of do pay as you go sort of things. So any of these, stay away from Yext. The Yext, not a fan, but any of these other 4, I believe, like I said, I don't know about this one, but any other 4 should give you good things. That's all I really need to do. Like I said, I know BrightLocal has, I think Whitespark has a tool where you can analyze citations. You can run and say, hey, how am I looking against my competitors? If you're at parity, you're done. It's more important things you could work on. Citations best practices, we hit these. Just do the aggregators. Yeah, we talked about this. Lots of real reviews. Like I said, gone over it. Push reviews. We have tools that can help you do that. We highly recommend it. There's lots of them out there. There's things, like I said, use the tools. We'll talk about that in a second. Leave a printed review card. You'll see even at like restaurants or even like dentist offices, like level of things, scan this and leave us a review. You could train your taxi or cruise to, ask for it. You in the office could follow up, give them a call. However you do it, however you're comfortable with doing it, find a way to do it. It's extremely important. And there's lots of tools. We have one that we own, which is called Reviews Accelerator, which basically all it is you give us a list or upload a list of names, phone numbers, and emails. It's going to send a couple emails and text messages to your customer, asking them to leave a review. That's it. You can customize what it says, and so make it, use the language you want, send as many as you want, follow up with them over as much of a period as you want, and just automate it. That's the easiest way to do it. Do it weekly, have a list, upload your list to it, boom, you're done. Do it every week. You'll see your reviews grow, and it'll be great for you. So how do the reviews help? I think we talked about this, but if someone leaves you a 5-star review with a picture talking about driveway paving, you're going to do better in the maps for driveway paving around where that happened. It's just how Google works. Having more reviews is going to get you more phone calls. You have more reviews as your competitors, you're going to get the most calls out of maps. And some people read the reviews. So it gives them more trust points, more data points, like, yeah, this seems like a legit company. I'm going to call them and see if they can do my project for me. On-site optimization is also important. I don't want to get into it too much. It's not the focus today, but make sure your website's built properly. Make sure you're including the information. The one thing I would say here is your website should also be local, in the sense that it talks about your local area. It has the local content. It has a map embed of your office location or your area or your city. Again, tell Google what you need it to know for them to know where you do business. Okay, that's all I'll talk about here. Off-page SEO, that's just links. We've talked about citations. We talked about local link building. We've covered that already. I don't think we need to go into it here. But it does lead me into the next point, which is strategic content syndication. And so what this is, it's just a fancy term. And I say a simple blog post on our site, simple, won't cut it anymore. That's true. It's not enough. What is great is kind of an old thing, which is new again, which is really, this says single generation. It's just press releases. Press releases are amazing. And the reason for that is because of how Google's algorithms have evolved over time, where they really focus on expertise, authority, and trust. They call it EAT. There's another one, EEAT. I forget what the other E is for. But it's expertise, authority, and trust. And so a great way to build that locally is with a press release. Now, why is that? It allows you to link to your, depending on the platform you're using, allows you to put a link to your website and your Google business profile, coupled with your name as an expert in your field, which you are. If you're a paving company owner, you're a paving company expert. And these articles get posted on reputable sites. Most of them are local news sites. They might not even be in your area, but Google trusts those sites. They're high trustworthy sites. And so what you do is, when you have an opportunity to do a press release, maybe you've been in business for 10 years, maybe you've been in business 15 years, maybe 50 years. Hey, Bob's Paving celebrates 40th anniversary. Do a press release. Get the right information in there. And there's other ways you can do this. You can even do press releases on blog posts, like, hey, from Bob's Paving, here are some things you should do to take care of your driveway. Here's some tips from Bob's Paving, how to take care of your driveway at home. So you can, it doesn't have to be boring content. It doesn't have to be, oh gosh, here's another press release. But there are ways that you can get content out there, which does a massive boost to your maps. And this is one of the things that we'll do for our customers is occasionally, if we see a soft spot in the maps, we'll try to come up with a way, how can we hit that with a press release? Because it does make an impact. And just long term, again, it's building your expertise, your authority, and your trust by getting content out there on authoritative sites, pointing back to your own site and your Google business profile. So something to think about. It helps a lot. Another thing that's important along the lines of this expertise, authority, and trust is page quality rating. And this is kind of pulled from Google's ranking factors. This is very important to Google, and I would say especially so now with the focus, or not the focus necessarily, but with the explosion of AI content. Expertise, authority, and trust is hugely important. Google basically folded. They threw in the towel and said, look, we can't stop AI content. We're not going to penalize content we know is AI. But if it's not correlated with expertise, authority, and trust, we're not going to rank it. So say you as a paving company owner could use AI to write an article, but you got to edit it and make sure that it says what you want to say, and then you post it under your own name. That's fine. But that's what you have to do. And so what I will say about this also, and kind of the point of the slide here, is as you're doing all these things, think about all these things, what I want you to consider for your website is, and this is horrible advice for real life, so interpersonally, don't do this. But on your website, you want to talk about yourself. You don't want to be the guy that everyone comes up to and say, hey, let me tell you about myself. But on your website, you definitely want to do that. And the reason is because of this expertise, authority, and trust. Google wants to see it, but your customers want to see it. They want to see who they're doing business with. They want to know who you are. And you should put an About Us page where you talk about your experience. You've been paving driveways since you were 18 years old. Now you're 50. That's experience. That's authority. That's trust. So putting information out there lets customers know, prospects know, that you're someone who can be trusted. And it lets Google know too. And all these things play together to help you get better results in the maps and everywhere else. So keep that in your mind. How can you be more out front in your business? Use pictures of your crew, pictures of your machines, pictures of yourself. Talk about yourself, talk about your crew, talk about your team, talk about your projects. Put that information out there for Google to see. They will trust you more. They will show you more. And your customers will trust you more too, and they'll want to call you. Okay. So getting near the end here, we're going to land this plane. We've covered these special, over the course of this discussion, these special local SEO ranking factors. Again, proximity. Proximity matters. You have to account for it in how you do this. Relevance. Relevance is about your signals. So you want to be relevant locally in talking about landmarks and things. You want to be relevant in the services you offer. If you do seal coating and you mostly do seal coating, your website should talk about seal coating. Your website shouldn't talk about dentistry. And we know this, but that's what this means. And prominence. Prominence is how long you've been around, how much useful information exists about you on the internet, citations, reviews, local content, local scholarships, local links, press releases. All these things build together to lift you up over time. Okay. And so these are just some, I'm not going to go through all these. We've covered all this. I don't want to bore you. We're kind of running against the time limit what I want to spend here. So if you have a question, drop in the chat now. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up. So if you'd like a closer look at this, if you're not a customer already, we work with a lot of paving companies, and we'd love to take a look at this with you. So if you go to pavingmarketers.com/apply now and schedule a call with Jason, and we will look at what's going on in your market. We'll look at you. We'll look at your competitors. We'll look at your geogrids, which is kind of a map of how you're doing in the maps. And we'll find ways, we'll talk about where opportunities are for you to do better. We'll give you a game plan. We'll let you know, hey, you really should be running ads. We don't see you running ads. We see your competitors running ads. You should probably do that. We see some, here's your geogrid. You could be getting better results here. Here's your organic rankings. Here's your reviews. Here's some things you can do to do a better job. And we won't say it like that, but you know what I mean? The point is to show you what your opportunities are and help you have a plan to do something about it, whether you work with us or not. What we tell you, you can take away and go do it yourself. But we don't care. We'd love to have you as a customer. We know we can help you. We've helped a lot of paving companies. We know what we're doing, but that choice is up to you. So go to pavingmarketers.com/apply now. As we wrap it up here, think about any takeaways. What did you learn? I hope you took something useful from it. Like I said, I'm going to be doing these every month on different topics. You'll get an email. You'll also get an email replay if you want to watch this again or go to a particular part of it. We want to provide this. We hope it's helpful. And if there's anything that you think would be more helpful, just reply to one of the emails. It'll get back to me. And I'd love to know what you think. So, like I said, we're kind of getting near the end of comments here, Q&A. So instead, just reply to an email or schedule a call with us. And one last thing, if you want to see how you're doing in maps, you can go to pavingmarketers.com. And if you kind of scroll down, you'll see a little box where you can enter your business name, all that information. And we'll send you an email with your GeoGrid. And so you can see how you're doing in maps. So go to our website, it's free. It's not going to cost you anything. Or this link here, if you go to paymarketers.com/hashtag Google-Maps-review, it'll take you right to that thing. If that's hard to remember, just go to paymarketers.com and scroll, and you'll find it. Okay. And thanks for the feedback there. I appreciate that. Look forward to talking to you. I'll try to be on that call. It's Jason, but I make them when I can. It'd be great to talk to you. Thanks for that. So like I said, let's talk. Give us a call. You'll reach Jason or go to paymarketers.com/apply now. Thanks for hopping on here. It looks like most of you stayed the whole time, so I appreciate that very much. The replay will come out tomorrow, and watch for an email around this time next month talking about what we'll do next month. I don't know what it is yet. Haven't decided. If there's anything particularly you'd be interested in, feel free to respond to that reply email and let me know, hey, I'd really like to know more about X, Y, or Z. And maybe my webinar next month will be about that. So thank you very much. I'm wrapping it up. Have a good day, everyone. And we will see you next month, if not sooner. Bye-bye.